Kimu Nьюману. Professor Moriarty. The Hound of the D'Urbervilles. A Shambles in Belgravia.
To Professor Moriarty, she is always that bitch. Irene Adler arrived in our Condit Street rooms shortly after I undertook to assist my fellow tenant in enterprises of which he was the eminent London specialist. In short, Sirrah, crime. That morning the professor was thinking through two problems. A portion of his brain was calculating the timings of solar eclipses observable in far-flung regions. Superstitious natives can sometimes be persuaded that the white man has power over the sun, and needs to be given handy tribal treasures if Bwala Sahib promises to turn the light on again. Bloody good trick if you can get away with it. The greater part of his attention, however, was devoted to the breeding of wasps. Yobi is a law-abiding soul, he said, in his reedy lecturing voice, as reverent to their queen as the clods of England, dedicated to the production of honey for the betterment of all, buzzing about promiscuously pollinating to please adult-minded poets. They only defend themselves at the cost of their lives, for they sting but once. Volumes are devoted to the care of bees, and apiculture exists to exploit their good nature. Wasps do nothing but sting. Persistently venomous, they fly from one assault to the next. Unwelcome everywhere. Thoroughly nasty sorts. We are not bees, Moran. He smiled, a creepy thing for a man with lips as thin as his. His near, fleshless head moved from side to side. I couldn't follow Moriarty's drift, but that was usual. I nodded and hoped he would come, eventually, to a point. A schoolmaster before taking to villainy, his rambles tended to win towards some inverted moral. Summer will be upon us soon, he mused, the season for picnicking in the park, for tiny fat arms to go bare, for governesses to sit and gossip unveiled, for shop girls and their blow to spoon in public. This will be a bumper year for our yellow and black striped friends. My first generation of Polist's pestilentials is hatching. The world is divided, Moran, between those who sting and those who are the stinges. And you will be the sting. Hers shrilled that voice. The American Nightingale had been admitted by Mrs. Halifax. Miss Irene Adler, acknowledged Moriarty. You see, a dilemma was acceptable. Your Marias, you were indifferent, and you were perhaps the worst Iliad Liverpool the stage has ever seen. What a horrible man you are, James Moriarty. His lips split and sharp teeth showed. My business is being horrible, Miss Adler. I make no effort at sham or hypocrisy. That, I must say, is a tonic. She smiled full. Gaunt arranged herself on a divan, prettily hiking her hemline up over well-turned ankles, shifting her décolletage in a manner calculated to set her Swanee wobble. I still maintain all would have been well if only I'd shown the Adler minx what was what straight off, tossed her skirts over her head, plonked her fizzog down on the reception room rug, a tiger whose head snarled as if he still bore a grudge from that tricky shot I made bringing him down, and administered one of my famous specials. Had I but properly poked that Yankee Popsy, she might have broken the habit, which eventually set all manner of oddbods scurrying around trying to clear up her confounded messes. Irene Adler had the face of an angel child, the body of a full-grown trollop, and a voice like a steel needle slowly sliding into your brain, even warbling to an audience of tone-deaf polish. She hadn't lasted as prima donna. After her Emilia flopped so badly the artistic director of the Warsaw Opera had to blow his brains out, the company cut her adrift, leaving her on the loose in Europe to the disadvantage of several ruling houses. And here she was on our city. You are aware that the services I offer are somewhat unusual? The professor said. She fixed Moriarty with a steely glint that cut through all the sugar.
I am a soprano from New Jersey, she began, pronouncing it New Jersey. I know what an obcrook looks like. You can figure all the sums you like. Professor, but you're as much a capo di Cosa Nostra as the moustache Pete's in the back room of the Burley. Q. Which is dandy because I have a job of burglary that needs doing urgently. Capisc. The professor nodded. Who's the red-faced gent who hasn't yet taken his glimpse of my teats for the last minute and a half? Colonel Sebastian Moran, the heavy game shot. Good with a gun, eh? Looks more like a shive. Man to me. She pointed her index fingers at her cleavage, which she thrust out, then angled her fingertips up to indicate her face. That's better. Look me in the lamps, Colonel. I harumphed and paid attention. If she hadn't wanted fellows to ogle, she shouldn't have worn that dress. There's no reasoning with women. Here's the thing of it, she said. Have you heard of the Duke of Strelso? Michael of Herberg, so? Called Black Michael, third in line to the throne of Mauritania. That's the fellow, Professor. Things being slow this season, I've been knocking around a bit with Black Mike. They call him that because of his hair, which is dark while the rest of his family is flame red. He is a gloomy, glowering type as well, so it suits him on temperamental grounds too. As it happens, photographs were taken of the two of us in the actual pursuit of knocking around. Artistic studies, you might say. 6 plates. Full figures. Complete exposures. It would ruin my reputation should they come to light. You see, I am being blackmailed. Her voice cracked. She raised a kerchief to her right equality, then froze, a picture of slighted maidenhood. Moriarty shook his head. She stuffed the hanky back into her sleeve and snorted. Worth a try just to keep my hand in. I am a better actress than critics say, don't you know? Obviously, I am not being blackmailed. Like you said, there are stingers and stinges. We are stingers. And the stingy. Another bloody colonel. Colonel Sept. Chief of the Mauritanian Secret Police. Which has been a dozy-doddle for the last 30 years, since it is one of the most peaceable, least insurrection blighted spots on the map. Not so much as a whiff of dissent since 48. When, admittedly, the mob burned down the old White Palace. There are very scenic gardens on the site. Anyway, intrigue stirs. King Rudolph is getting on and there is some doubt about who gets the throne next. Rudolph the Red, the Crown Prince, is set on shoring up his case by marrying his cousin Princess Flavia. Where do they get these names? If you put them in an opera, you'll be laughed off stage. Rudolph is fond of a tipple and a tumble, and Black Michael would like to paint himself as the more responsible, conscientious brother. He hopes for some bizarre reason to appeal to the people and be acclaimed a worthy sovereign if Rudolph trips up a few more times, and does something silly like not arriving at his own coronation. Sept is loyal to Rudolph, and dead set against Michael. Lord knows why, but they were. Some people are like that. He is also a keen appreciator of the aesthetic worth of a fine photo. I see, I said. This Sept thinks to blacken Michael's name further blacken, I suppose, so the Duke will never be king. Irene Adler looked at me with something like contemptuous pity. Horse feathers, Colonel of the Nuts. If those pics were seen, Black Mike'd be the envy of Europe. He'd be crowned in a wave of popularity. Everyone loves a Randy Royale. Look at Vicky's brood. No Sept wants the photographs of the market, so Mikey can be nagged into marriage by Antoinette de Moon, his persistently pestering mistress. Which would scupper any chance he might have with flavorless Flavia. You said Rudolph was engaged to the princess. She made a gesture suggesting the matter was in the balance. Whichever Herberg marries Flavia is a cert to be king. She's second in line. Black Michael is scheming to cut his half brother out. Are you following this? Moриарти acknowledged that he was. Why do you want those photographs? Sentimental value. I come off especially well in study no. 3 where the light catches the fall of my hair as I lower my. No. Not convinced. Rats, I must work on this acting lark. Obviously I want to blackmail everyone. Colonel Sept, Black Mike, Red Rudy, Mademoiselle Tony, the princess. With half of Britannia paying me to keep quiet and the other half to speak up, I should be able to milk the racket for a good few years at least, until succession is settled and secure my comfortable old age. She could not have been more than 25. And where might these artistic studies be found? Moриарти asked. She dug into her reticule and produced a paper with a map drawn on it. The Mauritanian embassy in Belgravia, she said. I have a collector's interest in floor plans, schedules of guards and the like. What is this? The professor indicated a detail marked with a red circle. A safe hidden behind the portrait of Rudolph III in the private office of Colonel Sept. If I had the key, I wouldn't be here. I've been driven to associate with criminals by the need for skills in craftsmanship. You come highly recommended by Scotland Yard. Moриарти sniffed haughtily. Scotland Yard had never heard of Professor Moриарти. For someone as crooked as you, I call that a recommendation. Moriarty's head started bobbing again. He was thinking the thing through, which meant I had to look after practicalities. What is in it for us, missy? I asked. A quarter of what I can screw from the Upperbergs. Half. That is extortion. Yes, I admitted with a wink. Weary extortion man, you might say. Half. She had a little sulk, made a practiced mature, shimmied her chest again, and bestowed a magnificent smile which warmed my insides. At some point in this business, I knew the old BMS would be required. Deal, she said, sticking out a tiny paw to be shaken. I should have shot her then, and there. The Mauritanian embassy is a mansion in Boscobel Place. Belgravia fairly crawls with embassies, legates and consulates. The streets throng with excessive crowds strapped into fancy uniforms, tripping over swords they wouldn't know what to do with if a herd of buffalo charged them. Moриарти scorned such methods as too obvious and not sufficiently destructive. First he wrote to the Westminster Gazette, which carried his angry letter in full. He harped on about the sufferings of the slum dwellers of Strelsa Earlstead, some of which weren't even made up witches, while the clever part came in and labelled Mauritania the secret shame of Europe. More correspondence appeared, not all from the professor, chiming in with fresh tales of horrors carried on under the absolute monarchy of the Upperbergs. The protest was swollen by less dignified malcontents, Mauritanian dissenters in exile, louts with nothing better to do, crooks in Moriarty's employ. Hired renters stirred passers by against the vile Mauritanian practice invented by the professor of cleaning the huge cannons of Zenda Castle by shoving little orphan girls into the barrels and prodding them with sticks until their wriggling wiped out the bore. A few of the Condit Street Comanche, that tribe of junior beggars, whores, pickpockets and garrotters whose loyalty the professor had bought, got themselves up as Zenda cannon girls, with soot on the faces and skirts, and threw down at anyone who so much as dared step outside the embassy. After typical foreign bleating and whining, Scotland Yard sent 2 constables to Boscobel Place to rep truncheons against the railings, and tell the crowd to move along quietly. To the Comanche, a Bobby's helmet might as well have a target painted on it. And horse dung is easily come by on the streets of London,